Last week we began a series on a spiritual classic that has really touched millions of lives across all traditions, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I hope that you've had an opportunity perhaps to purchase one of the books in the bookstore, kind of keep up with us as we're going along each week. The agreement that we're focusing on today is the first agreement: be impeccable with your word. How did I get this? I wonder. Reverend Renee and I had a conversation around this, I have to share. And at first it was like this: you do it. No, you do it. You do it. No, you do it. No. Here I am, Reverend Renee. I hope you're enjoying your vacation wherever you might be at this moment. Let's pull up the first slide and take a look at what Ruiz says about being impeccable. Being impeccable with your word is the correct use of your energy. It means to use your energy in the direction of truth and love for yourself. My dear friends, that's where it starts, within, always. And it's a very, very, very powerful, and it resonates deeply with our unity teachings, because in unity we know something about thoughts. We know that they are not just descriptive, they are creative. And what we say, we shape, and what we affirm, we manifest. So think about that a little bit as you're thinking of the words that you say on an everyday basis. Every word carries the energy of our consciousness, and it has ripple effects far beyond what we can see. It means that when you speak, even to yourself, in the privacy of your own thoughts, you are creating. It's impeccable. Right? Impeccability, and it's important that we watch our words, especially towards ourselves. So I want to bring up the scripture that we read today, and I changed it up a little bit, so hopefully lightning doesn't strike, and Sandy, if you could pull up that slide, I'd appreciate it. Be attentive to your thoughts and words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to you and health to your whole body. Has you think a bit, doesn't it? What words we're using and how it affects us internally, how it can even affect our own state of being. And so I want to share that this is very important, the words we use, and I'll show you what I mean. Have you ever said to yourself or heard someone else say, "I'll never get this right. I'm not good enough"? And here's the big one: "I'm so stupid. Oh my goodness, what was I thinking?" Well, quite frankly, you weren't, okay? You know, my dad always used to say this: "I can't win for losing." And I remember as a child even saying to myself, what does that mean? Does that mean that you'll actually never get anything right? That no matter what it is you do, you're not going to have any success? That really stuck with me, and let me tell you, it's been many, many years since I've actually heard it out loud, but it is something, love my dad, have sweet memories of him, but I know that is not something I want to repeat to myself. And then, I must admit, I have said some of these things, without a doubt. That's the joy of being up here. You have to do some deep introspection, so I'm actually doing that. But I remember when I was preparing to run a marathon, and I had just finished a really long run, and I was toast. I was done. I was tired. And I remember saying to myself, "Why are you doing this? There is no way, you can't run a marathon." I felt like I was that imposter syndrome. I'm a runner. No, I didn't feel that way. But the thing I said to myself that really got me was when I said, "Ann, you run so slow, you'll be lucky to finish before the time limit." Because they do have a time limit on marathons. So I finished. Took me 8 hours. It was a work day, but I finished within the time frame, so I was glad about that. And so what happened to me in that time was I actually believed it. I believed what I was saying, and I knew I had to change the narrative, and that's exactly what I did. I said to myself, hey, Anne, stop it. Change the narrative. Reframe what you're saying. So I thought about Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder of Unity, and she used to bless her body. You know, when she was experiencing illness or sickness, she would bless her body. So I decided that was what I was going to do. So when I would run, I would say, thank you, legs. Wow, you're doing a great job carrying me today. Thank you, feet. You're taking quite a pounding on the pavement today. I appreciate that. Think I'll buy you a new pair of running shoes. Thank you, arms, for moving like you did. And thank you, heart, for pumping blood to all the places that I needed. And it changed everything for me. And so I just move on from that, knowing that that one moment of speaking truth to myself changed everything. It brought me back to center. It allowed me to know the truth about myself. And I know on some level, each of you have done the same. You know, you've probably experienced something in your life where you talked yourself down, and guess what? You went to center and you talked yourself back out of it and upward. I do hold that space for you. And I'm going to ask Sandy if you'd put the slide up. If you make an agreement with yourself to be impeccable with your word, just with that intention, the truth will manifest through you. So let's take a breath on that, as Rev Renee says. It's powerful. Let it settle in for a moment. Because next, what I'm bringing up is what Ruiz says in chapter 1 about gossip. Gossip and integrity. No, oh my goodness. Ruiz warns that gossip, not just the mean-spirited type, but the everyday information that we share, particularly when we don't have correct context. And then what happens is we don't have compassion. So how important that is. Think about that in our circles of conversation. Do we really have the context of whatever it is we're talking about? In unity, we know that there's one power, one presence. I say God the good. And so if we recognize that one presence as within ourselves, we have to turn around and recognize it in each and every person that we're speaking with or speaking about. And Ruiz said, we separate ourselves from the awareness of oneness. Guilty, right? Guilty. How many times have I had to really think about this, how many times have I been in the gossip arena and going in with boxing gloves ready? You know, I've spoken the word and I've separated myself from the harmonizing, unifying power of love. So I just invite you to take a breath there. I want to share a story with you. Happened like many years ago, over 30 years ago. I was driving my car, and I had my dog Clara in the passenger seat with me. And yes, I know, looking back on it, I should have had a safety harness or a little seat belt, but I didn't. So I'm driving, and the car in front of me slammed on its brakes really hard. And so I had to slam on my brakes really hard. When I did, Clara went flying into the dashboard, and she squealed. It was like that, a painful squeal. I'm going to tell you something. My blood boiled. I knew I was getting out of that car. I was going to go up to the car in front of me, and they were going to get a piece of my mind, however little it was. They were going to get it. So I get out of the car. I walk up to the window. I started with a hand gesture. Thank goodness I didn't speak at first. So the hand gesture was, roll down your window. Now, you know how long ago it was, right? Nobody has a roll down window. Roll down your window. So she rolls it down. She's still looking straight ahead. I'm about to speak. she looks up at me because I'm outside, and she says the 3 most dreaded words I would have ever wanted to hear. "Hi, Mr. Michael." I was like, it was like a balloon had been inflated and somebody popped it. And I thought, so through my haze of anger, which, trust me, instantly deflated, I looked and I went, "Oh, geez, hi, Vicki." It was a student I'd had many years ago. And we had a conversation. We had a meaningful conversation. It came from a place of instant compassion, right? Because I just knew the person. I knew her. And before we departed, she introduced me to her daughter, who was in the passenger seat. By the way, she did have her seatbelt on. And it was just a wonderful reminder to me of how angry I was, and I was ready to spill on this person. And I looked back at it, and I realized, right, it was someone I knew, someone I cared about. She was a great student. Yeah, like I said, I recognized her instantly. In that instant, right, my body shifted. The anger drained out. The words caught in my throat because, to be honest with you, I felt embarrassed. And I also felt relieved that I hadn't actually said anything yet. I didn't walk up to the, goodness for that hand gesture. That's all I can tell you on that. So that moment showed me the incredible power of thought and word. So I just want you to reflect just for a moment. You may have a similar situation when you were about to blow some steam and you had to do a little bit of rethinking about that. I just know that in that moment, my thoughts were not impeccable when I walked up to that car. They were preparing to blame, to accuse, and to wound. Yeah, I really knew that because I was like, I'm angry and this is how I'm going to express it. And yet when I realized who was behind the wheel, as I said, the truth came rushing in for me. Our words don't land on faceless strangers. They land on real human beings. Every person we speak to is someone's friend, someone's neighbor, someone's child, someone's beloved. Being impeccable with your word does not mean avoiding disagreement. To the contrary, it's how do we speak when we realize we're in disagreement. It means speaking with integrity and compassion even when we differ. Being impeccable with your word, I want to read this as Ruiz teaches, starts even before the sound leaves our lips. It begins with the thoughts we choose to nurture, because what lives in our mind eventually finds its way to our mouth. And once spoken, we cannot take the words back. I have a dear friend of mine, the way they equate things like this is they say, you cannot unring the bell. No matter how hard you try. Once the words go out, you really can't take them back. Ruiz reminds us that being impeccable with our words means remember the slide, using words in the direction of love and truth. And unity teaches us that our words are creative. They shape our experience, they create vibration, and they shape the tone for our lives. And what a blessing that is. I talked about Myrtle Fillmore earlier, one of our co-founders of Unity, and she really understood the importance of blessing. Because what she did was she used the power of her word in letters that she wrote. There was a time when all of the letters were coming into Unity. There wasn't telephone as easily to call and hold prayer over the phone. So she would write letters to folks, which were always just wonderful, filled with the highest and best for everyone. The letters contained wisdom, spiritual insight, and practical advice, blessing all who needed it. So I'd like to take a moment to have us think about expanding this into the community. I want you to do a little imagining with me. Imagine every Sunday that you and I have the opportunity to bless the greeter at the door, to bless the child who wiggles and squirms in the sanctuary, Bless the adult who wiggles and squirms in the sanctuary. And bless the person whose opinion is different than yours. Bless the very walls of the sanctuary when you come in. Imagine every hallway conversation, every parking lot conversation, every team meeting, every board meeting, every staff meeting, every coffee hour chat in Meyer Hall being infused with words of blessing. The vibration would be magnetic, would it not? People would come through our doors, share a cup of coffee, attend a class, or sit in the sanctuary and say, I feel loved here. I feel loved here. And here's the beautiful truth, my friends. We are already doing this. You can feel it in the warmth of the greeting at the door, in the kindness of the volunteers, in the kindness of the staff, in the way people show up for each other in times of need. This community already speaks words of love. And, notice I didn't say but, and Spirit is always calling us to rise higher, to be even more intentional, to let our thoughts and words truly be a channel of blessing. Because when we choose words of compassion over words of judgment, words of patience over words of frustration, words of encouragement over words of criticism, we create a field of love so strong that it transforms not only us, but everyone who walks into it. Then imagine carrying it out to your family, to the broader community, because as we transform our own lives, we transform lives that... Thank you, boy. I was hoping you were going to remember that. And it's true. So I'd like to spend a moment to invite you to do something this week. For the next 7 days until we meet again, let's practice some intentional speech. Okay? The practice is both internal, for the words that you say to yourself, and external, the words that you share with others. And say what you need to say. Right? Say what you need to say. And remember these 4 helpful hints. Let's look at the first one. I'm just going to take a moment in between each one. Pause before you speak. Notice the thought behind the word. Ask, is this life-giving? Ask, is this aligned with love? The harmonizing, energizing, magnetizing power of love. And then choose words that bless, even in tense situations. Because, the big because. Every car window has a face behind it. Every ear has a part attached. And every word has the power to harm or heal.